Once upon a time, there lived a beautiful maiden in a great castle. She was quite pretty with big brown eyes and long flowing hair. Her skin was delicate and pale, and so she was known to all as Snow White.
She also had a stepmother who was called the Evil Queen. This evil queen was very jealous of Snow White. Every day, the evil queen would stand in front of her mirror and ask the mirror,
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?
The mirror always answered that the evil queen was, indeed, the most beautiful one in the whole kingdom. But alas, one day, the mirror told the evil queen that Snow White was now the most beautiful creature in the whole kingdom.
As you can imagine, this made the evil queen very, very angry.
Who does she think she is? Snow White. She's not the most beautiful creature in the kingdom. I am the most beautiful creature in the kingdom. Snow White must die.
And so the evil queen called one of her servants to her.
Servant Hardwick, take Snow White into the deepest, darkest part of the forest and slay her.
Of course, your majesty. Anything for you. Come on, missy.
Servant Hardwick put Snow White on a beautiful horse and led her into the deepest, darkest part of the forest.
Once I got Snow White to the deepest, darkest part of the forest, I became overwhelmed with guilt and compassion, and I could not kill the young maiden.
So he left her in the forest, beside a tall tree, and hastened away. Snow White was all alone.
It is so dark here. It is so lonely here. There are many strange sounds. I am so afraid.
Finally, Snow White fell asleep. At dawn, the sounds of birds woke her. She looked around and saw many animals scurrying about.
She soon found the path in the woods and began to walk along it. Before long, she came to a meadow, and there was a tiny house with a tiny door, tiny windows, and a tiny chimney.
Snow White walked up to the tiny cottage and knocked on the door. Nobody answered, so she pushed the door open and walked in.
What a tiny, tiny place. And look, there's a table with 7 plates on it. Indeed, this table is set for 7 people.
Snow White went upstairs, where she found 7 beds. When she came back downstairs, she had an idea.
I know. I'll fix them a fine dinner to eat. When they all come home, they'll have a wonderful meal.
Soon there was a sound coming from the forest. It was the sound of people singing.
We are rustics going to work, we laugh all day long. We might hit our hand on hammer, but we still sing songs. Hidey, hidey, hey, hidey, hidey, ho, hidey, hidey, hee, hee, ha, ha, ho, hidey, hidey, hey, hidey, hidey, ho, hidey, hidey, hee, hee, ho.
Suddenly, 7 rustics burst through the door of the cottage.
To their surprise, they found hot, steaming bowls of soup on the table, and the entire house had been cleaned from top to bottom.
Who are you, and what are you doing here?
My name is Snow White. I live in a faraway kingdom, and my stepmother, the evil queen, wanted me killed because she is jealous of my beauty. I was taken into the forest by one of her servants, but he was kind and couldn't kill me. He left me in the forest, and I eventually found my way to this cottage.
Very well, you may stay here with us. You can tend to the house while we work in the mines. You do not have to worry about the evil queen. We will take care of you and watch over you. You will be safe here.
All of the rustics jumped up and down and cheered for joy. They were all very happy to have Snow White stay with them. The next morning, they set off to work in the mines.
Be careful while we are away, and do not open the door to any strangers.
Meanwhile, the servant had returned to the castle. He informed the evil queen that he had killed Snow White just as she had instructed him to do. Being very pleased, the evil queen turned to her magic mirror and asked it a question.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?
Thinking that the mirror would answer that she, the evil queen, was the most beautiful one in the kingdom, she was quite surprised when the mirror told her that Snow White was still the prettiest.
Oh, darn! Oh, drat! I must now go and teach that little girl a lesson she will never forget. She must die. She must die.
The evil queen disguised herself as an old peasant and filled a basket with apples, including one that had been poisoned. She climbed onto her horse and rode off into the woods. Crossing a stream, she came upon a tiny cottage and knocked on the door.
Who's there? It is me, an old peasant woman, selling apples to make a living. Would you like an apple?
I do not need any apples, thank you.
Very well, but this is a very special apple, and it's quite delicious.
I will not let anyone in. Thank you very much, but I do not need any apples. Please go away.
I understand. But if you change your mind, I'm going to leave this very special apple for you, free of charge, right outside the door. You can pick it up after I'm gone.
The evil queen then leaves and rides a horseback to the castle. Filled with curiosity, Snow White opened the door just a crack and saw that the apple was on the porch. She grabbed the apple, slammed the door closed, and being quite hungry, took a large bite from the apple.
Instantly, Snow White fell into sleep. The effects of the poisoned apple made her a lifeless form.
That afternoon, all of her roommates returned home from working in the mines.
We are rustics going to work, we laugh all day long. We might hit our hand on hammer, but we still sing songs. Hidey, hidey, hey, hidey, hidey, ho, hidey, hidey, hee, hee, ha, ha, ho, hidey, hidey, hey, hidey, hidey, ho, hidey, hidey, hee, hee, ho.
There they found their beautiful Snow White lying lifeless and still on the sofa of the tiny cottage. They cried and cried. They carried her into the forest and gently placed her on a bed of rose petals. Each day they brought her a rose and placed it beside the sleeping body of Snow White.
Then one day, when the rustics showed up to place their roses, they saw a young prince standing over Snow White.
That is Snow White. She has bitten into a poisoned apple and now is fast asleep. She sleeps here forever.
The young prince took great pity on the beautiful maiden.
Aww.
He bent down and placed a gentle kiss on her cheek. With that, the spell from the poisoned apple was broken. The evil queen let out a blood-curdling scream from the tower of the castle. The mirror broke and Snow White woke up to discover the handsome prince standing before her.
The young prince immediately asked Snow White to marry him and to live with him in a great big castle in a neighboring kingdom.
I will marry you, young prince, only on the condition that I will be a completely equal person in the household and throughout the kingdom, and that I will be able to make my own decisions and be your true partner.
The young prince agreed, of course.
Snow White says goodbye to all of her rustic roommates.
Snow White and the prince rode off together into the sunset and would live happily together as partners while governing their kingdom fairly and equitably.
We are rustics going to work, we laugh all day long. We might hit our hand on hammer, but we still sing songs. Hidey, hidey, hey, hidey, hidey, ho, hidey, hidey, hee, hee, ha, ha, ho, hidey, hidey, hey, hidey, hidey, ho, hidey, hidey, hee, hee, ho.
Look right there.